mind-blowing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad Gantos.
Raad
Good afternoon, everybody,
Gantos.
and welcome to another episode of the Raad Life. Sorry, Paul, what was that?
I was just saying your name, Raad Gantos. I'm going to give like Johnny. I'm winding up. Here's Johnny.
Keep working on it.
I'm dating myself. Nobody remembers that.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us for another episode of the Raad Life. Today, actually, is a little bit even more appropriate that we actually hold this and have held this more or less every week at noon, lunch hour, right? On occasion, we end up having even more reason why it's actually live at noon. And that's got to do with a little teaser there, food and some culinary stuff. So today, I actually, I just want to share a little background to how this episode came about. I was minding my own business, as anybody who knows me on social media will laugh right now. I mind my own business on social media. No, I don't mind my own business on social media. Actually, when somebody says, "Oh, you're famous," I say, "No, I'm infamous. I'm not famous." But yeah, Paul knows. So anyway, so I'm minding my own business on social media. I'm looking through, and on Instagram, and this thing pops up in front of me. That's like a sponsored event, or I think it was a Yelp Orange County sponsored thing. And I'm like, what is this? Raclette? I haven't heard that word raclette since 1985 when I graduated college in Switzerland. What is Raclette and Orange County doing, connecting right here in front of me on social media? And so, of course, I delved into it like any curious person would. And I came across, and I actually didn't know who I was talking to, because all I was getting was Bojour Raclette was talking to me. And I was talking back and forth with Bojour Raclette, little alone did I find out that Alex was actually Bojour Raclette. But I'm jumping forward. So anyway, we're talking back and forth. I'm trying to find out more about this. There's an event coming up in April. I'm like, well, this is really cool. And we'll get into what raclette is and why this is kind of an interesting thing to all of a sudden appear on my radar screen in Orange County. And so we're talking back and forth, and I'm like, this is really cool. I want to have you on the show. And then we kind of just let it slide a little bit, like
Simmer. So you let it stew. You let it simmer. Right. You let it marinate.
No, we didn't even let it simmer or stew. It just kind of sat on the shelves. You know,
it
wasn't even under a heat lamp. It just sat on the shelf. And then there was this last week. It was very early in the morning. I happened to find myself around Costa Mesa, Newport Beach area, and I needed a place to work to get some drafting stuff done for my bread and butter, which is commercial interior design. So I was working on
more food analogies. You see how he works these in? My bread and butter, you know.
Bread and butter, yeah.
Always master it, just bringing in these themes.
I'm just spreading it around.
Spreading it around,
yeah. Spreading it around. So anyway, so
watch
I'm looking
how he
for
does
a place
this.
to work, and this was about 7:00 in the morning. Well, I usually will land at the Center Club for work because I gave up my office a few years ago, and I was remote working before remote working was a thing to do, right? And I would work at Center Club. Center Club isn't open until 9:00. I'm like at a quandary here. Like, what do I do? I need to find a place to park myself. So I go down, and I go down to this place called Zinke. We'll give it a little plug for Zinke down in Lido Marina Village. And I walk in. Of course, everybody's wearing masks, right? There was nobody there. I was like maybe the second person walking, first person walking. I think they were still cleaning the bathrooms. So I sat down, I got a cup of coffee, sat down, minding my own business, drafting away, like, you know, just I'm going to work a couple hours here until the Center Club opens up, and then I'm going to go over. Well, as usually happens when you get into that creative zone, the time just ran, right? And so here I am now facing the fact that I have an appointment at 3. It's down in South County. I don't think I have enough time to go to Center Club, get lunch, and finish the thing. So I might as well just order now. So I go over to the counter, and I'm still wearing a mask. The person across from the register is also wearing a mask.
This is a long story. Is this we got time for the whole story
interesting.
here?
I tell people all the time how small this county is, and it is this small. Okay, so I walk over and I'm ordering my lunch, and I look over to my side on the right-hand side, and there's a bunch of flyers. There's a bunch of flyers and business cards. It's like these little flyers and business cards, you know? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh, huh. Because it rang a bell. It's the same thing I was talking to 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, right? Well, yeah. And the guy across the counter from me wearing a mask says to me, oh, yeah, this is my event. And I'm like, oh, yeah, and you and I have been talking on Instagram, right? So, yeah. So how small is it? So I'm like, okay, fine. You know what, Alex?
It's
we got to have you on the show. This is a sign. We got to have you on the show. It was. So that's when we start talking, and it's an interesting thing. I'm going to let Alex tell his story and background, because I think that's kind of interesting.
Who are you, and what the heck is Raclette?
Well, but I want to preface this, right? Raclette, obviously, at this point, if you're listening, is some sort of cuisine we're going to talk about right? Some sort of food offering. But what was interesting, and you'll see the connections here as we talk more, is I honestly believe that at some point, Orange County was considered, you know, hamburger dives and little Mexican restaurants, right? I mean, that was the extent of any culinary wowness that was going to happen, right? Well, shout out to Omar Santana and Vaca and a bunch of other people, Chef Pascal and, you know, Bruno Suerto, and down in Anaheim. And there's a lot of people that are very diverse. This has been happening, right? Mm-hmm. But also equally in parallel has been this sort of like cultural diversity that's also happening in Orange County. It's not the 1950s birthplace of, you know, modern conservatism only. It is now a purplish place with a lot of diverse people from different places.
I went into just to prove that point. My wife and I were driving. This was, I don't know, 6 months ago somewhere, maybe longer than that. I guess it was before the pandemic. And we're just driving along, and we're like on the freeway somewhere in central Orange County. And I said, I'm hungry. I'm just going to pull over in the first shopping center I see. No rhyme or reason. There must be some kind of thing there I can eat. She says, okay, pull in. And there's the usual fast food stuff. But I counted no less than 8 different restaurants, all ethnic restaurants, Vietnamese, Chinese, Mexican, some I wouldn't expect, Turkish. There was a Turkish restaurant there and a couple others like this. And I'm like, wow, has Orange County changed here? I'm looking for a burger, and there's 8 different ethnic cuisines in this first shopping center off the freeway.
Right. So we have become, I think, much more diverse just in general, right? Culturally. I think there's been a growing desire. I used to sort of unflatteringly refer to Orange County as a cultural wasteland, right? That's not fair, but in comparison to other places, even up the street, you know, like even Long Beach sometimes has better offerings, right? So it's changing, and the county politically is changing. The county just composition is changing. And I think with COVID, this last period of a year, because of the fact that people have had the ability to just order pretty much anything, right? I think we have now become a little bit more discerning. Our palate and flavor for things has become, see that, I just added that in there too.
Flavor. He's going to do this the whole show. Just watch how he weaves this in.
Right? The flavor,
how he kneads the dough and works in all this stuff.
The seasoning, the flavor, exactly.
Spices it up.
We really are hungry for a more deeper experiences when it comes to our culinary.
Are you saying that we don't want flat pizza anymore? We want deep dish pizza?
Dude, all I'm saying is that, and I'm not picking on Fleming's or Ruth Chris, but the steak and potatoes, they're really good piece of meat and potatoes. That's good for when you want it, but the thing is that I don't want it all the time.
No.
So I'm going to want, for example, if I'm going to have a steak, a good piece of meat, and some sides, I want to go to Vaca because there's a range of things that I can have. There's some jamon from Spain. You know, there's all kinds of different cheeses. I mean, South Coast Plaza, again, I'm not harping on Omar, although he's a friend, Omar Santana, who's a chef. But, you know, South Coast Plaza went to him for a reason, to do the market at South Coast, which replaced Z Tejo's, which was a popular Mexican restaurant. And there's like 9 skewers of shawarma, whether it's chicken or lamb or beef or whatever, right? And the tapas, and you know, it wasn't that long ago that sushi was only a California thing and hadn't spread across the country, or avocados were something that hung off a tree that we didn't know what to do with, or arugula was another one, right? Or cauliflower rice. Who the hell eats cauliflower rice? I tell you what, I ate cauliflower rice Alex served it to me yesterday at Zinke because it was great. I'm like, I want something light. I want something like cauliflower rice and chicken and some shaved cheese.
I'll give you
and
another
tomatoes.
example of what you're talking about, because you're talking about places around South Coast Metro, South Coast Plaza there, which has a very diverse ethnic cuisine. Our studio,
and there's a lot of people, to that point, there's a lot of people that visit Orange County from overseas that are coming in that are of international. So we are basically, catering to a lot more diverse people.
I was always struck. We moved our studio in the pandemic from where it had been for 7 years in the office tower across from South Coast Plaza. We moved it to UCI's new Beale Applied Innovation Center. Give them a shout out here. They built a nice studio for us. So I've left that area. But for 7 years, I enjoyed every day I'd go out for lunch. There was 17 different choices, none of which were meat and potato. There were not one, this was a year ago, I'm hoping they're still there. There was not just one, but two Peruvian restaurants. I'd never even been to a Peruvian restaurant, and they got two of them there.
Yeah, it was across the street.
And then you got the Vietnamese.
Like, it's not even South American. You got Ecuadorian. You got Peruvian. Like, this is my point, is that we have become more sophisticated even in saying what you want. I don't want South American food. I want a Peruvian food. I want Himalayan food, not Indian food. Like, the diversity of our palate has grown to a point where in Orange County, we are now looking for those kind of things.
Is there a Himalayan restaurant? You throw that out like that's a ridiculous concept.
There might be.
Huh?
What, Himalayan restaurant? Yes, there's at least one that I know of nearby. There's two actually nearby.
Himalayan restaurant. What do they just serve? Ice and snow?
Himalayan. Ladies and gentlemen, the sophisticated Paul Roberts.
I have no idea what Himalayan food would be. Zero.
Himalayan food is a blend of Indian.
Yeah.
But then there's some dishes that are uniquely, and keep in mind, like a lot of that stuff, why it's different is because geographically, the offerings that are available are different, whether it's because of altitude, whether it's because there's no pastures. Like, I grew up in the Middle East. We don't have green pastures and prairies. Okay. There are no grazing grounds for cows. We have lamb. We have sheep. We eat a lot of lamb. We eat a lot of goat. Sometimes some of the cheeses are good goat-based cheeses, right? And yet you go, wow, goat cheese. Oh, I love French goat cheese. Well, yes, there's also Middle Eastern goat cheese, right? Like, you don't associate certain things sometimes with each other, right? North Africa, South Africa, Southern Africa, all these places have regional offerings, whether it is in terms of stuff that is grown or because of the topography, what can be raised there. And so, like, to my point, I'm sitting on the side of a mountain for 4 years. The word raclette is, like me saying, well, what do I want today? Let's see. Fondue. I mean, yeah, maybe. I want to get a deep pan pizza. That is sacrilege, man. Thin crust pizza made by an Italian. That's what you want to have, right? I mean, or what do I want to do? Raclette, yeah, raclette. Let's go get some raclette, right? And all of a sudden, like, raclette appears in Orange County. Remember, what the heck is raclette doing in Orange County?
So what the heck is it? You're teasing us. I'm salivating. I want to know what the heck it is.
I want to again introduce Alex. I want to give him the mic. I want the background story. I want to know, where's Alex from, how he got to the United States. If for all I know, you may grow up in Garden Grove. I mean, who knows, right?
He looks like he's from Garden Grove.
So tell people about yourself, Alex, and let's talk about this, because not only Bojour raclette, it's also the idea of a Bojour soirée, okay, which is these events, and especially after COVID, I think there's going to be a desire for people to not have 200-person events. Like, to have these micro events that are unique experiences that are somewhat exclusive, at least in feeling, right? Not necessarily in stuffiness, right? That are still very culturally enriching. Mike's yours, my friend.
All right. Well, I am Alex, as Raad was saying. So I was born and raised in Ivory Coast, which is in West Africa.
In the Ivory Coast? You're the absolute first person I've ever met from the Ivory Coast, this little tiny country.
And I bet you didn't expect somebody from the Ivory Coast to look like Alex.
To look ivory.
No one ever does.
I thought they would be all African.
I told you we were going on a journey today.
Wow.
So far, it's the Ivory Coast was the longest country I've lived so far. So I was there for 7 years. My dad actually opened a restaurant there which is funny. It was called Hollywood Cafe.
Hollywood Cafe, of course.
It was an American burger joint restaurant.
And they serve burgers.
Yeah, exotic. Right.
And my dad is a French chef, so that was a very interesting mix.
I got to stop you for a second because I'm fascinated by world travels. I know very little about the Ivory Coast. I know roughly where it is, the Gold Coast, the Ivory Coast, Liberia, Gambia. It's all kind of in that little area where the Africa turns, and
Exactly.
and there's a bunch of little countries there that most people don't think of. Ivory Coast, wasn't that a French colony for a while? Is that?
It is, yes. So it was colonized by France. So everybody in the Ivory Coast speaks French.
Right.
So that's why my dad originally moved there, because it was easier as a Frenchman to live in that country.
Where are you originally from? Where is he originally from before he moved to the Ivory Coast, Alex?
My dad's from France.
But where?
He's from near Paris, a little village called Montmorency. Tiny little village with a bunch of farmers market. So from Ivory Coast there, me and my dad, we moved to France, actually. And over there, he opened a bed and breakfast. So we were there for about 4 years. From there, we moved to Spain, in the southeast of Spain, a little island called La Manga del Mar Menor. He opened a Greek restaurant there, but yeah.
A Greek restaurant in Spain, of course. That all makes sense to me here. A burger joint in Ivory Coast. Yeah, I see the pattern. I got it.
Yeah, he moved around a lot, and I was able to be in that journey with him. So I grew up in restaurants my whole life. I was the little kid helping out in the restaurant, talking to customers, and I was doing customer service without even thinking I was doing customer service. I was just a little kid, just enjoying my time in the restaurant, being the owner's son and just entertaining the guests. So I was basically, that was restaurant and hotels has been my whole life.
So I got to stop you again. How does he pick cuisines? He goes to Africa and does Hollywood burgers. He goes to a Spanish isle and picks Greek food. He's French. He has no connection to any of these cuisines.
So my dad is he's more like, I guess for myself, he's like he's an entrepreneur. So whatever he finds a niche for, he'll try and find it. Probably the most successful restaurant he's had was in Ivory Coast. That American burger joint was probably the most successful restaurant ever. We just had to move because there was a whole coup d'etat and a war going on.
Yeah, right. A few little things like that. Right?
Something like that will cause you to move, just a little.
Yeah, just little minor details, just things exploding and stuff. But that was, I think he just finds little niches, and he'll learn the cuisine.
Is he still with us? And where is he if he's still with us?
So my dad is actually in Vietnam.
In Vietnam, of course. Why
Yes,
didn't
of
I
course.
think
That
of that
makes
one?
sense.
Yeah.
So he's a culinary teacher, and he's a head chef of this resort in this little island called Phu Quoc Island in Vietnam.
What's the island? Phuket?
Not Phuket. It's called
That's
Phu
in
Quoc.
Thailand. Yeah, Phuket's in
Phuket
Thailand.
Island.
Phu Quoc Island in Vietnam. It's like a luxury little resort.
North,
island.
south? Where part of Thailand?
South of Vietnam. Near kind of Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ho Chi Minh.
So from Spain, I moved to Netherlands, and I was there for about 2.5 years. And then from there, I moved to Singapore, and that's where I went for high school. I went to an international school called Singapore American School.
You and Raad both. You're both
Exactly.
international.
We talked about that
experts.
yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, how we have this connection, which is, like I said, like Raad was explaining when we met, was the craziest thing. It was like meant for us to like meet that way. Like we put everything in the back burner. We kind of didn't talk for 2 weeks.
The back burner. He's picking up how to do this now. Here, all right. I got to throw.
And then he shows up taking my order for friggin', cauliflower rice and chicken.
Before you do this, I'm going to share one little observation here. So I'm a Midwest American kid. I only grew up on burgers and fries and meat and potatoes, and I'm Irish to
It's
boot.
lucky you're forgiven.
Yeah, there is no Irish cuisine. I went to Ireland. I know why everybody drinks, because the food is terrible.
Bum. He's got jokes, ladies and gentlemen.
So anyway, but the one odd, weird little connection I got to throw out here is, so I never, my whole life we moved around the Midwest. My dad was an executive with Chrysler, so we'd have mostly in Detroit. We'd go do a region in Pittsburgh or Milwaukee or mostly all around the Midwest areas. And I still have only been to I went to Ireland once. I've never been around the world. I've never been to all these places that you're rattling off. I read about them as an armchair traveler, Africa, Singapore, Switzerland. And the only odd connection I bring us up is when in 1970, we were living in Pittsburgh, and my dad was offered an assignment to run Chrysler of Europe, which was they were going to break out. And they had bought Simca, this little company in France, and they had bought Roots Motors in England, and a couple.
Simca's not very small. It's
gotten pretty big, I think.
But it's not a very well-known company.
No, and they had bought these couple of odd brands, and they were going to turn it into something, and then we were going to move to Geneva, and this was a big deal because they said, once you go, you don't come back. You don't come back and move to Pittsburgh. Once you accept these overseas assignments, you're probably in it for life. And we kind of thought about it, and we all said, let's go. And then a little thing called the Arab oil embargo hit, and all of this crashed and burned, and they quickly shut the thing down and stopped the whole nonsense. And Chrysler went into bankruptcy a couple of years after that. And so we always marveled. I met Rod. He's been to school in Switzerland. You guys have all this stuff. And I thought how different my life would have been from this little Midwestern kid who'd never been anywhere, even around the country, much less around the world, to have suddenly
I'll tell you something, Paul. I think what's interesting about that is, and it sounds like Alex maybe even more, because he was sort of his early childhood was more of a nomadic existence, like with his dad, and sort of a sense of adventure maybe with his father already built in. Those years are extremely foundational and shaping, right? In terms of everything from your ability to easily comprehend and put yourself in other people's shoes, the ability to understand the need for respecting local traditions and ways, regardless whether you believe that to be the best way or not. That is, there's a common courtesy and respect factor. And it's interesting because it's not hard work to get to the point where you have an embracement of diversity or an appreciation for multi-layers of experiences, right? Because that's just how you grew up. And I think for you, I mean, how old were you when that was possibility?
We accepted the role. So 1970, I was 14. And I do remember they sent us we started to make the move. So they sent us to some classes. I was going to learn French and some other things, because in Switzerland, it's either French, Italian, or German. Right. And French being the more dominant one. So they were going to try and send us to classes, and we started to enroll for some of the stuff. And all the thing I remember is we took a class, this is so strange, on how not to be an ugly American. And I thought, what does that mean? And one of the only thing I remember, we didn't go through too much of it, but there was a whole training, like, don't go over and say this stuff. And the one that stuck in my mind all these years later is, you don't say, how much is that in real money?
That's a good one.
Do you know how to say that in French? I'm going to be very impressed if you know how to say that. I don't
know how to say it in French, but just that notion like that everything they're doing is strange. Okay, enough of that, senor. How much is that in real money?
But to be fair, even within this country, like any other country of this size, even within the United States, there's variations on cuisine, culture, local traditions, right? So I want to turn the mic back to Alex, because so you're on an island in Spain, right?
Eating Greek food.
You're working with your dad in a Greek restaurant.
Yeah, right by the water.
Okay, yeah, my heart bleeds for you. It's a horrible
tough life.
It's on an island in the south of Spain. Southeast of Spain. Okay, not exactly southeast. Okay, you're really struggling here. Okay, so what was it like working for your dad? Or with your dad?
Well, as a kid, I didn't think of it as like working. I thought of it as like, this was like my playground. This was my home. I spent my dad, majority of his time was in the restaurant. Majority of my time was in the restaurant because there was no one else at home. So I spent probably 95% of my day, or 90% of my day, at the restaurant. The rest of it was just at home or at school. So I didn't think of it as work. Honestly, it was great just talking to the people. I met a bunch of people there, connections, and I feel like that's how it shaped me to the way I am today. I'm able to literally travel anywhere in the world, put me in whatever city. If I don't know anyone, that is actually perfectly fine. I will get to know people. I will make friends. I will make connections. I will adapt.
Right.
No matter where I am, I adapt very well, and that's basically how.
I think that's one of those key words of that experience is your ability to adapt, and it's not out of intensity or necessity. It's more of just a reaction to the situation. You could be dropped pretty much anywhere and basically find a way to thrive and actually have an enriching experience. So what happens after Spain?
So after Spain, I went to Holland for middle school, and from there I went to Singapore, which I attended Singapore American School, same school, similar school as you did in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I graduated there, and it was a prestigious high school, so a lot of times the path was like, oh, go to a nice college, or go to college, get your business degree, whatnot, and go work a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
So I was listening to all these contacts. I'm like, okay, that's what I'll do, So I decided to go to a business school all the way in Canada. Never been to Canada, and there's this little school called Bishop University in Sherbrooke, about 2 hours away from Montreal, in the middle of nowhere. And I went from Singapore tropical area to full-on winter, all like the snow all the way up to my chest. So that was very
Do you
different.
just pick a map out and throw things at it and say wherever it sticks, that's where I'm going here?
Basically, that's what happened. So I went there for a year. And I realized quickly that business school or just that type of education wasn't my thing. If I'm not passionate about something, I'm not gonna really put my effort into it. So it showed a lot. I was really into it. But while I was there, I actually started a club. One of the first clubs. I started some sort of kind of like a meal prep club. And at the same time, the money I would make from it would go into a charity, which would be for my little brother. He has Angelman syndrome, which is very, very similar to Down syndrome and autism. So I kind of started kind of an entrepreneur club for charity-wise.
With a social responsible component.
Exactly, and that's what I did there. It was the first one, and it was a little successful. We raised about $1,000 to $2,000 for the small amount that was there, which was not bad for such a small school. And from there, I decided to leave school, and I went to Georgia, not the country, but the state. My parents moved there.
I mean, Montreal to Atlanta, Georgia. Montreal to Georgia makes perfect sense to me, right?
Yeah, my whole life.
You're following Rod Gantos's footsteps because he went to business school.
When I was talking to Alex the first time, I'm like, wow, I'm getting dizzy, and I had a similar experience.
He went to business school, and then he went to Atlanta for a while, and yeah.
Okay, so now you're in Atlanta, just outside, or in Georgia.
I decided to get a restaurant job. It's a tiny little pizza place called Bricks. They're actually pretty popular in the southern East Coast area. So that was my restaurant job. I started serving a very small little town called Peachtree City.
Yep.
I'm probably the only foreign person there. Everyone's from the South, and
Yes. Nobody goes to Peachtree City if you're not already born there. Yeah, right.
No, exactly. And they're like, who is this guy? He's Filipino and French, and he's been all over the world. What is he doing in this town? But it worked out very well. I made some really close friends. I got a lot of experience from working there. So I worked that restaurant job, and then I worked the GNC, which is a supplement company. So I was doing both jobs. And then after 2 years there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Southern California. I moved to Orange County, and then see where that goes. Moved to Orange County. Luckily, I was able to get a job right away, which was a restaurant called J.T. Schmidt's, if you're familiar with it.
Right across from the duck pond. Yeah, right.
Yes, exactly. So I worked there for from 20 to 24, so 4 years. So I was there for events. I worked there as a server. I was also a banquet server, banquet captain. I did food running, basically everything in a restaurant. And then afterwards, I found myself at Zinke, which is a French restaurant in Newport, in Lido.
Yep.
So now I've been there for about 3 years.
And I've never been to that restaurant. Tell me about that restaurant. I didn't know that even exists.
It's more like a casual French-American style food. A lot of healthy options, but a lot of fresh ingredients. A lot of French dishes like quiches and ratatouille. We have steak frites. We have moule frites, which is
Steak
muscle.
frites, you know, French fries, a weird form of French fries, right?
Yeah. Frites, basically.
The stringy, thin fries. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have a lot of locations. Zinke has like maybe 8 locations, so they've been very popular.
Can I ask you one quick question? Are French
ahead.
fries just an American invention, or they really have, like we have McDonald's French fries? Do they have those kinds of things, or is that just an American take on a very, sort of like pizza, I'm told, is really not that big of an Italian dish. You say it's sort of been modified by Americans. What we think of as pizza, you won't find everywhere in Italy.
No, French fries is actually quite popular in France. A lot of dishes just come with a side of frites. So it's not an American, I don't say it's an American invention. The different style of cuts of French, definitely an American invention, such as like steak fries and waffle fries. That's definitely an American thing. So at Zinke, working there, and I've always had a dream of opening up my own restaurant or just having my own business in the food industry. I just didn't know exactly what that was. And I'm 26 years old right now, but I would say like my very early 20s, I was really focused on that. I was kind of stuck in the restaurant industry where I would make money, go out, party, not really focusing on what exactly I wanted to do. And then it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, everything kind of clicked. I started being tired. I wasn't enjoying coming into work as much anymore. And I was tired of working so hard for somebody else and not getting anything back. I'm not going to get a raise.
Working for the man, right?
Exactly, working for the man, working so hard and not getting anything much in return. So I actually moved to Costa Mesa with my girlfriend, and I decided to host a Raclette dinner. Now Raclette, I know we've been teasing all about it.
30 minutes I've been waiting to hear what a raclette is.
Tell Paul what raclette is.
30 minutes I've been waiting.
So it's a Swiss French dish called raclette. It's specifically with raclette cheese. So everybody knows about fondue, where you dip things in the melted cheese. This one, instead, you scrape the cheese onto your ingredients. So you scrape it onto potatoes, on your vegetables.
Scrape it what? From you must melt it somehow, and then you scrape it off whatever you've melted?
So there's either a melter, like a big one, where you like scrape the cheese with a big knife onto it. Or the way I do it, I have a little machine and then there's little personal skillet pans. Where you place the cheese in it with a broiler, and then you can just personally scrape it yourself. Now,
basically, the top layer of the cheese, Paul, is what you're scraping. That's heated, and what Alex is talking about is the more, like you can pop a bottle of champagne or you can saber it with a sword, right? Like there's also
exactly.
There's also
Raad only chops them off with swords.
Not necessarily important, but it's part of the folklore, right? And so.
Does it taste different that I do this?
A half cake of cheese, basically, sitting in a saddle.
Yeah.
And then a heater on top of it that is melting just the top thing, and then somebody just comes and scrapes the top. So there's a little bit of show to it.
And
there's also, for what Alex is saying, is there's other ways to serve it, but it's still the same principle. It's that top layer of the cheese being melted and scraped off.
Now, when you melt cheese, which I've only ever seen a million years ago in fondue pots in the Midwest, that was a craze for a while. But I don't see anywhere where they serve melted on your hamburger, I suppose. But does cheese change when you melt it, or is it just the effect of the gooiness that it covers everything?
No, so the raclette cheese is specifically made to melt. You don't really eat it not melted. You can, but it's specifically made just for melting. And it tastes very different. It's a very strong cheese, especially when it's not melted. But the moment you melt it, it's more of a mild taste, and there's a little bit of sweetness to it. It's a very particular cheese. There's no other cheese like it.
So I'm going to just add this too. I did a little research because I was curious, right? And it turns out that raclette, or some form of this meal, has been around since like 1291.
What?
Yeah.
Right? Medieval times, right? And the thing that's interesting about raclette is it's not this pretentious meal.
No,
it's a very equity meal. It's like anybody, like you could dress it up, you could dress it down. It's basically melted cheese or a little bit of roasted almost cheese, a little bit too. but it turns out that peasants and like herders of cows would basically carry it with them because it was convenient. And then at night they would put it next to the campfire and have it melt a little, and then they would scrape off a little bit to eat.
So yeah,
So it was
that like long time ago in Switzerland, more specifically the Valais region, Switzerland.
Yeah, exactly.
So Switzerland has a French side and a German side.
Right.
So this is the French side. Shepherds, like Raad was saying, long time ago. And
Fribourg, Valais, yeah, that area.
Yeah, needed to find food that was able to survive on their mountain trip. And they realized that potatoes and a whole block of cheese was able to survive. When they got to the top, they roasted the potatoes, melted the cheese over it, and then they scraped it onto the potatoes. Now, over time, raclette became more of a family meal, more of an experience, and then it elevated to charcuterie. So people started having salami and prosciutto.
Cold meats that you got a little roll of cold meats and you chop them off and
exactly. And then but for my company, Bojour Raclette, we decided to elevate it. That's why we have filet mignon, lamb chops, we have scallops, we have prawns, and then we have lobster tail. And with that, I actually make my homemade sauces with it, which are phenomenal. Very, very good.
So why have I never heard of this? I've heard
it's a social meal. Like it's like fondue actually is a social meal. Like you don't sit around, like you don't go to eat fondue because you're hungry and want to eat in 15 minutes, right? You don't go, you know, raclette, when I've had it, like in Switzerland, in some places it's like a set fixed price situation, or it could be like how many scrapings of the cheese that I get charged by the number of scrapings. So, but it's always very social. There's a time component. Like it's interesting in our society today, which is so driven by convenience and expediency
and turning over the table, getting them in and out. Turn the table as quick as you can.
This is not fast food drive-through. And in order, I mean, you can say, okay, here it is, I'm eating, I'm done. But the idea of it is this prolonged dining experience and the sharing of the breaking of bread, the sharing of the eating, the connection, interaction, which is really what drew me to Alex. It wasn't so much that he was offering raclette, it was how he was offering the raclette.
So how do you do it?
We kind of advertise it as like an experience, and that's what his raclette has been. And it's been a family tradition of mine for many people as well in Europe for so long. We have it for, now America, we have it for Thanksgiving, we have it for Christmas. When we have people over, that's how we entertain our friends and family. It's more of a 2 to 4 hour dinner, maybe shorter if you want, however long, but you kind of take your time with it. You connect with the people you're with, you make bonds, you share different, combinations of the raclette. What else can you do? Can you put the cheese on this? It's kind of an interactive dinner.
Conversation, connection. It's almost like the equivalent of, not really the same, but like you don't go to somebody's backyard for a barbecue on 4th of July and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to check in at 3 o'clock and I'm going to be done by 4. Like you're there for the afternoon. You're there for, you're going to have a beer, you're going to hang out, you can connect, you're hanging out by the barbecue, you'll have a little bit of food, you'll sit back, maybe do something else. So I think it was more the fact that he's doing these in an event setting.
Yeah.
He's doing it in a small event setting. And again, I have behind me on the green screen is, Bonjour Soirée, because Bonjour Raclette, he has bonjourraclette.com. But the Bonjour Soirée, the idea of it being an evening experience, is what really drew me to have Alex.
So these are kind of like home parties. You come to my house and I tell you how many people and you bring the food and prepare it and I have a home dinner.
And basically give you the whole history of raclette like I was explaining to you, and I guide everyone through the experience. I interact with the guests as well. They get to know me. I get to know everyone. And it's more of a really nice night out where everybody gets to connect as human beings.
Is this expensive? Is this only for the lives of the rich and famous, or can our peasants enjoy the peasant food?
Bonjour Raclette itself is a little pricey, but it is advertised as all you can eat. So it starts at $75 per person for 2 proteins. 3 proteins is $90 per person. And if you want to do all 4, it's $100 per person. But like I said, it's all you can eat.
And you bring it all, and how long does it take you to prepare this? I have to set
it. 2 hours before the actual dinner, and then people usually have dinner for about 2 hours, and then I'm there to guiding everyone through it, and I'll clean up everything after and leave like I was never there. So it's about 4 to 6 hours, I would say, when I go to someone's house.
Has this done well in these lockdown times where we're forced to stay home and we still want to have private events? And
January 2021 is when it first took off. I started getting, my goal was funny when I first started, was to get like 1 booking a month. Ended up being, next thing you know, I was booked for the next 4 weeks. I had one once a week, so all my weekends were taken, and I was like, huh, this is interesting. And then my next goal was to do 2 a week. So since January until now, I've been booked twice a week for these dinners. It ranges from 4 people all the way to 15 people. So it's been an amazing thing. And it's crazy because, like Raad was saying, Orange County, Southern California, nobody knows what Raclette is.
Never heard of it.
So this is also, it's also like a hard step to make people believe in this service. So it's been, luckily I had a few people that have had it, like Raad knows about it. So there's been a few niches here and there, but for the most part, it's people that's never had it, never have any.
So Raad, when's the party? When are we coming over?
Alex has an upcoming event.
Yes.
That's in April. I think it's next Saturday.
Next Saturday, April 17th. So that is the next step for Bojour Raclette. So this will be called Bojour Soirée. So I have a vision on how I want people to experience this whole entire thing. Very European, very elegant. Now, instead of going to someone's house, I pick a venue and I set up the whole thing. So the Bojour Soirée we're going to have next week, April 17th. It's going to be up to 32 people, so very more intimate. There'll be a red carpet entrance, a lot of candles, very, very nice ambiance. There's going to be live music. There's going to be a cocktail hour with French hors d'oeuvres getting passed around. Also, like I said, a very beautiful setting in a Spanish courtyard villa. From there on out, after the cocktail hour, we would bring our guests outside. And during the golden hour, sunset, you'll have a beautiful raclette dinner. And you'll get the full experience basically under the stars.
And how much is that, and where do they go find that?
So they'll be on the link, I believe it's right behind Raad's screen. It's bonjour-soirée.simpletix.com. There's a full description of the event there. Starts at $175 per person, but it's a 3-course, all-you-can-eat meal. So you're getting a full 3-course meal, eat as much as you want in a beautiful setting with live music. You know, most people go to a restaurant and spend about $150 per person for just sitting down in one place.
And where is this? At some private home or some? I picture like Casa Romantica, where near where Raad lives, down that Ole Hansen's old house that they rent.
Would be a good venue for an event, actually.
Yeah, but this one will be near Fullerton area, near Cal State Fullerton. It's a little Spanish courtyard. It's a house, but they turned it into a venue. It's like 2,500 square feet. Huge place and beautiful setting. It's magical the moment you walk in. Now it's going to be even more magical with our setup.
So I think what's interesting about what Alice is doing too is that with the timing of it, is if I'm going to spend money to go somewhere right now, I still have a certain sense of I don't want to be in crowds.
Right. No.
And so for a while, I think even after everybody's vaccinated and herd immunity, whatever, I think we're going to have psychologically just not a desire to be in a lot of crowds.
Absolutely.
And if I feel like, I'm getting a really genuine experience, it's spread over a number of hours, right? It's not just me going to an event like a launch of something or whatever, and it's just, you know, a buffet of food and I'm just mingling for friggin' 3 hours, 4 hours, and I'm bored out of my skull within an hour and a half, right? Because it's the same people I see all the time. Yeah. What's interesting about this is the fact that I may be sitting at a table with another, you know, Alex was saying, and I'm jumping here a little bit, Alex, but you're saying, you know, tables of 8. So I might be sitting on a table with people I don't know, people that may not even be from in the same circles that I interact with. Yeah. This particular event is in Fullerton. If it's okay to say, it's going to be in Fullerton. But again, I like the idea of these pop-ups where it's not limited to a physical location. Like my experience could be this quarter. Next quarter, maybe there's a different soiree type. Maybe it's raclette, maybe it's not raclette. But this sort of a sophisticated international cultural activity, based around food.
He knows how to cook everything from burgers to Greek food, so he can do anything here.
Exactly.
I mean, I've been talking about like an event for blues and barbecues, for example, right? At the Center Club, we were talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
Where you could bring in, everything from pairings for small batch out, bourbons, and you could do like a pass of finger foods, which basically like falling off the bone ribs, but with sauces that are not usually the stuff that you find, to maybe unique cuts of buffalo meat, or even like some amazing vegan offerings off the grill. Like, I think this is the kind of thing that I'm willing to spend money on, but also because there's layers of experience that are associated with it. And the fact that it's not limited to a physical location every single time is actually, for me, an interesting combination.
I'll tell you what I find interesting as well, Rod talks about this a little bit. I've experienced it a little bit. I grew up in a fork and plate world. Everything is on a plate, and you touch it with a fork and you eat it. But in most of the world, you'd use your hands. Certainly in Moroccan food, there was a Moroccan restaurant in the middle, in San Pedro I used to go to, that you sat on the ground.
And you better eat, in certain cultures, you better eat with the accurate hand and not the other hand, because there's layers to it.
I didn't know that. Okay. But you look at so many cultures, you'd watch Anthony Bourdain when he was alive go around the world, and so much of it was just put the utensils aside, grab the
Anthony
food.
Bourdain, that show is amazing.
Rip it apart, eat it, consume it. Fondue and things like that. Middle Eastern food to me always feels like you take bread and you're dipping and you're doing stuff and you're not using utensils. It's a very tactile feel to it.
There's an added layer to joy when you actually eat what you're supposed to eat with your hands.
Yeah, you feel
just
very
like there's a tactile component to it that you don't get when using utensils. However, that being said, there's also a joy of experience if you are sitting in an old 1800s converted little villa on the water water of Lake Como, for example, and they serve you something that you eat what you're eating with the correct fork or with the correct spoon, or drinking the what you're being served for libation in the correct size glass. That's what I mean by that sort of cultural experience. There's a knowledge base, there's an educational component, there's a joy of learning, not only about what you're stuffing in your face, but how you're going about enjoying the meal. And to have somebody that can share that with you is something that I found very interesting and unique as we become more sophisticated in Orange County.
Yeah.
Americans are so separated from their food. I grew up in the white bread world of the Midwest, where it literally had white bread, and the only cheese I ever heard from Switzerland was Swiss cheese that came in a white block.
Dude.
And Kraft slices that were in plastic, so I had to take the plastic and put the cheese onto something, and then everything. We were excited because, in fact, it was very exotic. I remember my late mother, my late aunt, both getting giddy the few times we'd have ribs, because that was something you touched and it got gooey, and ooh, it's all over me. We're very pristine, separated. It's wrapped, it's separated. I touch it with a fork. We're very separated.
Well, 1950s Middle America basically not only was separated from its food using utensils, it was separated from music being on the wrong side of the tracks, the food and barbecue being on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah,
which side of town you were in, there was a right side of town and a wrong side of town. Whereas a lot of places in the world, you're actually encouraged to explore that side of town. That you embrace actually the layering of diversity of experience. In the United States, what's interesting is that there's an insular approach sometimes, which reflects throughout the whole culture, right? So before we run out of time, I do want Alex to just cause a little bit more salivation to happen.
I'm already salivating. You can't.
No, I want you to drool. I want stuff to come out of your, just down here.
The side of your mouth here and everything.
Okay, I want you to drool. So I want Alex, share with them the menu that you have prepared for this event on the 17th.
Yeah, so for the hors d'oeuvres that we're going to have already for the cocktail hour, we're going to have a ribeye tartine. So it'll come on a French poilâne bread, shipped from France. It's a very thin bread, very crispy, very delicious. On it, we'll have our Bojour aioli, which is our secret ingredient in it is herbe de Provence, which is
It's what? The who to what? I never even
herbe
heard
de
it.
Provence. It's a French seasoning, so that's what the aioli is made of. And It's
Okay.
very delicious. You have a sliced ribeye on top, caramelized onions, a little bit of arugula. And now the other appetizer would be a vegan choice, which
Okay.
would be ratatouille, which is a very French dish. It's a lot of vegetables mixed
I saw
in.
the movie with the mouse. That's all
Yeah,
I
no,
saw.
I was going to just say it's not only a movie from Disney. It's
Yeah,
actually
so in the Disney movie, the ratatouille, the dish, which he makes at the end, very popular.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to be doing as a vegan option. After that, there's going to be the full raclette dinner. We're going to have lamb chops and filet mignon, scallops and prawns. We're going to have a roasted garlic butter sauce for the seafood, lemon tarragon aioli, very refreshing for the seafood as well. We're going to have a homemade peppercorn sauce, which we put a little bit of whiskey in it.
Ooh,
for
whiskey.
the-
Now you're
for the-
talking my
You need
language,
a
lad.
napkin over there, Paul.
Now you're talking my language.
And for the dessert, we're actually going to have a deconstructed creme brulee.
Can I tell you a story? Now that Rod doesn't know this about me, all the years we've done this, he probably doesn't know this, that I actually always had a fascination since I came to California with going out to eat at exotic places.
Yeah.
I turned that into a little business a side business I had for a number of years. I did PR for a bunch of restaurants including some rather well-known French restaurants at the time up in Beverly Hills and stuff. So I'd get free food and get to go in and talk to them all stuff. And then I was the freelance restaurant writer for the Riverside Press Enterprise for a couple of years, and they would send me on assignment, and I would try and get all these exotic places that they didn't want to go to, and so I would do all that. So I'm well versed in all this kind of creative, cool, fun stuff that you're doing here.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there isn't. Offline, I'll give you some suggestions of where you should do some of these things and come up with some events, some tie-ins and stuff like Casa Romantica.
Yeah, this is our first event. So the goal is to be able to do these once a month and more of an exclusive event, very intimate, and it's a full experience.
I love it. I think you're onto something.
You know, it's not just where you go to a restaurant and you eat dinner and you just sit at the table. You know, yeah, you can go to a really nice restaurant that has a really amazing vibe. Like, let's say like Nobu. You go to Nobu for the name and you experience it, but you experience it sitting down. You're not really doing much.
No, I want to go to a Middle Eastern where they do belly dancing and the whole thing here. I want the whole.
It's like in these events I'm trying to do, you're gonna have the full.
Rod's gonna organize that one.
And then you're gonna have like live music, very European. You get to connect with new human beings. You get to connect with old friends, new friends, family. You just enjoy it, and it's just an amazing, magical night.
You know, people laugh at how long meals take in other countries.
Yes. Oh.
Right. And when they do, they usually do it because it's like, are you kidding me? 6 hours to have a dinner? Like, who the heck eats like that? Like, you know, I'm supposed to sit down and have dinner at 6 and be done by 6:20, right? Like, because then I'm going to basically go to bed at 8. And we're like, yeah, well, a lot of the world doesn't work that way.
No,
you know,
we eat late dinners.
Right, and the reason why people don't get Gordy and plump is because we digest over those 6 hours too. You know,
I'll give you one example of that. So when I was a kid, again, Midwestern food is horrible. What's wrong with American? It's the English Irish taken to its worst degree. If my mother had one rule: if it wasn't burned, it wasn't done. Everything had to get burned because you were going to get sick or something. So it was just everything, and there's no flavoring. The only
everything is well done, right, Paul? There's no medium rare. There's
no, you're going to get sick from that. So the only seasoning we have is salt, which we instinctively. My sister-in-law still does it. You bring food. She went to your thing. She'd say, "Where's the salt?" Before she even tried it, she'd be dashing the salt all over. That's what we just did.
Like that work in restaurants
instinctively. So that was it. It was plain. It was boring. It was the same. It was limited. It had tons of salt on it. It was all fake, white bread, Kraft cheese. I don't even know where this stuff comes from. Chicken nuggets. Where does the chicken nugget live on the chicken? I don't know. It's a hot dog. It's all meshed crap and stuff here. That's what we live for. And the only exception to that in the once a year was Thanksgiving, where the traditional Midwestern house, the mom and the daughters would cook this massive meal. It's the only time my mother ever spent more than 5 minutes in the kitchen, and they'd spend it all day. That disappeared a long time ago. Now we just go buy it at Ralph's and we serve it up. That idea, my grandmother used to make a pie. Nobody makes a pie anymore. You just go buy a pie. We've lost that interactive, that spending hours of crafting the meal and hours of eating it. We've moved to a fast food mentality.
You know, Paul, there's such a thing as love languages.
Yes.
Okay.
People
listening to the show going, what the heck, man?
I've heard people talk about that.
Now you're talking about love languages. Yeah, I'm talking about love languages.
Yeah.
There's love languages, and love languages, one of the love languages is giving, but from cooking. Like you actually
I made it for you.
Anybody who's had a mother that has spent time in the kitchen, whether and you know, it tends to be maybe even more so, like whether it doesn't have to be Italy, Italian, it can be Italian American, it can be, you know,
most immigrants
Polish,
do this. Yeah,
you know,
right.
you go places to Chicago. There are families where the form of expression of love is actually in the preparing and sharing.
Absolutely.
Not just the preparing, but in the preparing and sharing of the meal. And to your point, we have lost that.
Gone.
And so again, one more reason why when I saw Alex doing this, it really appealed to me on a level of something that has been missing, that actually is an added layer to an experience. So it's not just eating, it's not just the raclette, which all of these things that are novel and interesting and exciting kind of make me want to go and be involved and try this and taste this. It's going to appeal to my sense of taste. It's going to appeal to my sense of feeling because I'm in that environment, you know, that smells, taste,
Yes.
all those components, sound with the music that he's playing.
I remember when they brought back open kitchens, you know, 10, 20 years ago. That was a shock. And then you could
all of a
see
sudden
people
I can
prepare.
hear the sizzle on the griddle, and I can
it.
see the chefs working busily and instead of hiding behind a wall. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, we tell people it's all about the experience, and sometimes that has almost become a cliche because people will say it's all about the experience, and then they won't really take the time to layer the experience. So what you end up with is the promise unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the time is unfulfilled here, or it is filled. I'm sorry. The time has been filled here. How do people reach you? How do they learn more about this event and maybe hire you to do one of these
give people
private soirees, these private events?
So the Instagram is bojour.raclette.
And spell that because nobody will.
Yeah, Bojour, it's BONJOUR .raclette, which is RACLETTE. Now, anything on the Instagram, there'll be my website, there'll be the soiree, the link you saw behind the.
And spell soiree because I can say it, but I can't spell it.
Yeah, the soiree is SOIREE. There's a little accent on the E, but for social media purposes,
that's why I put it on the board behind me, Paul.
But
so
for those listening, maybe through the podcast or other things.
SOIREE soiree. And so again, it's Bojour, BONJOUR soiree. And then he has bonjour.raclette, which is the Instagram. I believe also on Facebook you have Bonjour Raclette too,
yeah,
right?
Facebook as well. It's all connected with it.
And bonjour just means what? Hello in French. Bon means good, so I don't know what good something.
Yeah.
What's jour mean? Well, it's sort of bonjour. If you literally, what is bonjour?
It's basically good morning, good day, actually.
Good day.
Yeah.
Good day.
And then soiree is just an event, a fancy event usually.
Exactly, like an elegant night.
Right. Well, this has been an elegant afternoon with somebody a couple of world travelers and a wannabe world traveler. Today I'm the wannabe. Who's fascinated by all this. I really, only on the Raad Life, only does the Raad Life ramble through these sorts of soirees and these serendipitous moments where we can dip our food into something here. This would only be on the Raad Life. Where else could I hear about this?
Yeah.
You know, I told you, you know, and I tell people all the time, you don't know where the journey is going to take you.
Crazy.
Come join us on a Wednesday and you'll find out. So what did you think when you woke up this morning? Did you think you were going to hear about Swiss cuisine? I mean, do the Swiss even have cuisine?
Private
All they
event.
had was bells and cows, and
Yeah.
that was it, and cheese and chocolate.
Chocolate.
Here you go. And it's and you met a gentleman that basically is very much a world traveler. He's bringing this to bear at an event that's happening right here in our own backyard, and it could be the launch of a lot of interesting things. Plus, I think the timing is perfect for this, as people are coming out of both COVID and as the county gets more sophisticated in its desire for stuff like this, cultural activities, cultural events. We want more layers and more.
We all
flavor
want to
our
live the
existence.
Rad life. That's why we tune in, this vicarious experience that he lives. He lives this life, and we all aspire to be the Rad life. Yeah.
What Paul basically gave me an opportunity to start 6 years ago, which we then crowdsourced the name on Facebook at the time, has now become for some people a descriptive adjective.
Yeah.
Honestly, and it's really funny when
People say, "Well, what is that? Well, how does that fit in?" I don't know. It's the Rad life.
Or somebody will hashtag.
It's like the
Rad
good life.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like the good life. It's the Rad life.
You know,
Yeah.
like, so I appreciate everybody again for being supportive and listening all these 6 years. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to be with us here today. It's really, I'm very excited to be there. I will be there on the 17th. Yeah. It's actually not this Saturday. It's a week from Saturday.
Right.
And
stick around after we hang up here, because I want to give you a couple other ideas off the air here.
Right. Okay.
Paul's always full of ideas.
I'm in.
So, but anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope we didn't really tease you too much with food today, and if we did, then maybe we teased you enough for you to go buy a ticket. So, hopefully I'll see you guys there on the 17th. It's going to be a really interesting and fun night. Different for sure for what we normally experience. And again, a shout out for all those people that we mentioned, Amar Santana, everybody who's doing stuff out there that is different right now, that is reinventing the wheel, that is willing to go where we haven't been before, to sort of misquote a Star Trek thing. But really, we come out of COVID with an opportunity to have open minds on everything, and a willingness to embrace stuff. So with that, I hope you're hungry enough to join us next week on an episode of The Raad Life. Who knows what else we're going to be talking about. Thanks, Paul.
You have been listening to the Raad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.